Hello guys, so in this video I'll be going over some of the most commonly asked interview questions which you might face in your upcoming interviews. So these are basically mostly scenario based questions, and nowadays interviewer prefer asking these questions, so you should know how to answer these questions effectively. So with this, let's start this video with our very first question. Explain rest assured framework in your current project. So if this question is asked to me, so how I would answer this? So I can say in my current project I used rest assured to ensure the quality of our APIs. So we use rest assured for testing the functionality, testing the performance, testing the security. Now to test the functionality, we make sure that our API endpoints work correctly. For instance, I verify that when a user make a GET request, they get the expected data in response. Similarly, I also check if appropriate error message is returned when a user try to provide invalid data. And to test the performance, we assess how well our APIs perform. So I measure the response times to see how quickly it delivers the results. Additionally, I test if our API can handle multiple requests at the same time without any issue. Now, in order to test the security, so I ensure that it is protected against common attacks. So I can ensure that it is protected against cross-site scripting, and other is SQL injections. So this way you can answer these questions in your interview. So you can make your variation and answer this question. So with this, let's move to our next question, that is, how do you validate the response of your API in automation? To answer this, you can say, like, in my automation experience, I have used various techniques to validate the API responses effectively. Here are some examples, and you can use 3 or 4 in your interview or all, so it's your choice. So the first one is status code verification. See, it's crucial to validate the response status code to ensure the API request was successful. For instance, in one of my project, I expected a 200 status code for a successful request, a 404 code for a resource not found, and a 401 code for a unauthorized access attempt. Okay, so along with this, I have also provided this code snippet, so you can go through this and see how you can use this code in your API project, or you can practice this, right, to prepare well for your interview. The next is response body validation. Extracting and validating specific data from response body is important. For example, in a recent project, I had to verify that the name field in a JSON response matched the expected value. Using assertions, I ensured that the name field was John Smith as required. Let's move to the next. Next is schema validation. So I have used schema validation to ensure the response adheres to the defined structure and data type. So in one of the project, we had a JSON schema that specified the required fields and their types. So by validating the response against that, this schema, we could ensure data consistency and format correctness. Next is response header verification. So validating specific header is essential. Okay, so for instance, I check the content type header to ensure it is set to like application/JSON for JSON responses. Additionally, I have verified caching headers like cache control to ensure proper caching behavior. Data comparison. So there are cases where I need to compare the API responses data with expected values. So for example, in an e-commerce project, I compared the actual list of products returned in as a response with the expected list to ensure they matched correctly or not. Next is assertion libraries or testing frameworks. So I have utilized assertion libraries or testing frameworks like JUnit or TestNG to simplify the validation process. So mostly I work with this TestNG only. So these tools provide built-in methods such as assertion equals to assertion true to compare and perform complex validation. So they help me to ensure the accuracy and reliability of our API responses. Okay, so let's move to the next question, that is, how do you provide test input for API in automation? So in API automation, I provide test input using different methods to ensure throughout testing. So here are some ways I do it. So first is predefined test data. So I used fixed test data directly in my automation scripts. This helps me to have control over the input and ensure consistent testing. For example, if I am testing a user registration API, and I would use predefined test data directly in my automation script. So username is test user and password is secret password. Second is dynamic test data generation. So sometimes I generate test data on spot, right, during test execution. So let's say I am testing an order placement API. I would generate dynamic test data during the test execution, as you can have a random email and a random, let's say there is a transaction amount field, so a random transaction be there, and password could be anything. That's why I haven't included it here. Now next thing is external data sources. So I fetch test data from external sources like database, spreadsheets, or CSV files. For instance, if I am testing a products search API, I could retrieve a list of products from a database. So I can use a query, a SQL query for that, like select star from product where category equals to, let's say, electronics, right? And then we have data driven testing. So when testing an API with different scenarios, I utilize frameworks that support data driven testing. For example, if I am testing an authentication API, and I would have like test with different username and password combinations, right? So I can create some multiple test cases like test case 1, and I can have some, let's say, username. So it can be for here it's like admin and password is password. Okay. Then we have test case 2 where we have username user and password is pass123. So this way I generate multiple test cases. Now the next one is API payload templates. So when dealing with complex API payloads, I create templates to define the structure and format. For example, if I am testing a blog post creation API, I would use a payload template with placeholder. So so here like you can see the payload template. So we have title and content, and both holds the string value. So here title is introduction to API and content is this is a sample blog post. Now we have a environment configuration. So to handle different environment, I used configuration files. So let's say I have a separate configuration for development and production environment. So I would load the appropriate configuration based on the test environment, right? So for development environment, let's say the API endpoint is dev.api.example.com. Similarly, for production, it could be api.example.com. So so this way you can take my like responses as a base for your preparation, so you can modify these as needed. So guys, that's all about this video, and I hope you have learned something. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. If you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe to my channel, and I'll be posting new videos every week. So thanks for watching.